The deep space around the Kepler drift was empty and cold. Nothing moved in the black void except tiny pieces of rock and ice. Captain Hyun-woo stood on the bridge of the salvage ship Harmony's Edge, watching the stars through the main screen. His coffee had gone cold an hour ago, but he didn't care. They had been searching for 3 weeks without finding anything worth their time. "Captain," called So-jin from her station near the back of the bridge. Her fingers moved quickly over the sensor controls. "I'm getting something strange on long-range scans." Hyun-woo turned around. So-jin was the best engineer he had ever worked with. If she said something was strange, it usually meant they had found something valuable. What kind of strange? Big metal signatures about 2 light hours away. "The computer says it's a ship, but the readings don't match anything in our database." So-jin looked up from her screen. Her dark eyes were bright with excitement. "Captain, this could be really good for us." The bridge was quiet, except for the soft hum of the ship's engines. Hyun-woo looked around at his crew. They were a mixed group from different planets. Thektar, the insectoid security chief, was cleaning his 4 arms with careful movements. His yellow eyes never stopped watching everything around him. Near the navigation station, Velnoth floated in his environmental suit. The gaseous alien's blue form moved like smoke inside the clear container that kept him alive in the ship's atmosphere. "How big are we talking about?" Hyun-woo asked. So-jin checked her readings again. "At least 3 kilometers long. Maybe bigger. The metal composition is weird too. I've never seen anything like it." Minho, the young analyst, looked up from his computer. He was the newest member of the crew, barely 25 years old. His job was to figure out what things were worth and how much they could sell them for. "Captain, if it's that big and made of unknown metals, we could be looking at enough money to retire." Thektar made a clicking sound with his mouth parts. It was how his people showed they didn't agree with something. "Unknown metals usually mean unknown dangers. My people have a saying, the bright flower often hides the sharpest thorns." "Your people have a saying for everything," So-jin said with a smile. "But this time, the bright flower might just be bright." Hyun-woo walked to the main screen and stared out at the stars. He had been running salvage operations for 15 years. In that time, he had learned to trust his instincts. Right now, those instincts were telling him 2 different things. The first was that So-jin was right. This could make them all rich. The second was that Thektar might also be right about the danger. "Velnoth, how long to reach the coordinates?" he asked. The gaseous alien's voice came through the speakers with a slight hiss. "At current speed, 18 hours. But Captain, I must agree with Thektar. Unknown ships in deep space are often unknown for good reasons." Hyun-woo nodded. Velnoth's people were traders and explorers. They had been traveling between stars for thousands of years. If he was worried, there was probably a good reason for it. "So-jin, can you tell what kind of ship it is from the scans?" Hyun-woo asked. So-jin worked at her controls for several minutes. The bridge was quiet while everyone waited. Finally, she looked up with a confused expression on her face. "Captain, this is really weird. The computer says the ship design matches human construction patterns." "That's impossible," Minho said. "Humans have only been building spaceships for about 200 years. Nothing we've built is that big or that old." "How old?" Hyun-woo asked. So-jin checked her readings once more. "The metal shows signs of age that don't make sense. Some parts look like they're 1,000 years old. But other parts look almost new. And Captain, there's something else." "What?" "I'm detecting very faint power signatures. Whatever that thing is, it's not completely dead." Thektar stood up from his chair. His 4 arms moved in an agitated pattern. "Captain, I strongly advise against approaching an unknown vessel with active power. My people have encountered such things before. They are never what they appear to be." "What happened when your people encountered them?" Hyun-woo asked. Thektar's yellow eyes grew darker. "Some of the ships returned, some of the crews did not." The bridge fell silent again. Hyun-woo could hear his own heartbeat in his ears. He looked at each member of his crew. So-jin was still, excited about the discovery. Minho looked nervous but curious. Velnoth's gaseous form moved slowly in his suit, which usually meant he was thinking hard about something. Thektar was ready for a fight, as always. "Captain," So-jin said quietly, "we've been out here for 3 weeks with nothing to show for it." The company is not going to be happy if we come back empty-handed again. This could be exactly what we need. Hyunwoo knew she was right. The Galactic Salvage Consortium had been losing money for months. If they didn't find something valuable soon, they would all be looking for new jobs. But he also knew that dead crew members couldn't spend any money. Minho, pull up everything we have on human ship construction. I want to know if there's any way a human ship could be out there. Hyunwoo sat down in his captain's chair. So-jin, keep scanning. I want to know everything about that ship before we get close to it. Minho's fingers flew over his keyboard. Captain, I'm checking all the records. There's no human ship in history that matches what we're seeing. The biggest human ships ever built were only about 800 meters long. And none of them ever came out this far into deep space. What about secret projects? So-jin asked. Maybe the humans built something they didn't tell anyone about. The humans aren't that good at keeping secrets, Velnoth said through the speakers. Their governments leak information like broken pipes. Hyunwoo made his decision. Set course for the coordinates, but we approach slowly and carefully. At the first sign of real danger, we turn around and leave. Understood? Yes, Captain, the crew said together. As the Harmony's Edge changed course toward the mysterious ship, Hyunwoo couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to discover something that would change everything. He just hoped they would all live to tell about it. The stars outside seemed to watch them as they flew deeper into the empty space between worlds. Somewhere ahead of them, something waited in the darkness. Something that should not exist, but did anyway. The derelict ship grew larger on the main screen as they got closer. Hyunwoo had seen many abandoned vessels in his years of salvage work, but nothing like this. The hull was twisted and broken in some places, but other sections looked perfect. Strange patterns covered the metal surface, like writing in a language no one had ever seen before. Captain, I'm reading atmosphere in several sections of the ship, So-jin reported from her station. Gravity is working too. Whatever is powering that thing, it's still running after all this time. How is that possible? Minho asked. He was staring at his computer screen with wide eyes. The energy readings don't match any known power source. It's like the ship is powered by something that shouldn't exist. Thektar moved his forearms in a pattern that meant danger in his culture. Captain, my sensors are picking up movement inside the ship, but the life signs are wrong. They appear and disappear like ghosts. Velnoth's gaseous form moved quickly inside his environmental suit. Captain, I advise we leave immediately. Ships that read the dead but show life signs are cursed in every culture I know. Hyunwoo studied the massive vessel on the screen. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The front section was shaped like the head of some great sea creature from Earth's ancient oceans. The middle section was covered in what looked like armor plating. The back section was completely destroyed, with metal beams sticking out like broken bones. So-jin, can you identify the ship's name or registration? He asked. So-jin worked at her controls for several minutes. I'm getting something, Captain. The computer is having trouble with the language, but I think it says UES Indomitable. The UES part probably means United Earth Ship. That's impossible, Minho said. I've checked every record of human ship construction. There has never been a United Earth ship called the Indomitable. And even if there was, humans don't build ships like this. Maybe it's from the future, So-jin said with a small laugh. Time travel would explain why we can't find it in any records. Nobody else laughed. In a galaxy where faster-than-light travel was possible, time travel didn't seem completely crazy. Captain, Thektar said, I recommend we stay on our ship and use remote drones to explore the derelict. Boarding an unknown vessel is dangerous enough. Boarding one with impossible readings is asking for death. Hyunwoo knew Thektar was right. The safe thing to do was stay away from the ship entirely. But the safe thing rarely made anyone rich, and they needed this salvage to work. We'll board the ship, Hyunwoo decided. But we go in small groups with full environmental suits and constant contact with the Harmony's Edge. At the first sign of real trouble, we get out. Captain, I volunteer. To lead the boarding party, So-jin said. This is the most interesting thing I've ever seen. I need to know what makes it work. I'll go with you, Minho said. If there's valuable technology on that ship, we need someone who knows what to look for. Thektar clicked his mouthparts in annoyance. If the humans are going to do something, Dangerous, I must go too. Someone needs to keep you alive long enough to regret your poor decisions. What about me? Velnoth asked through the speakers. You stay here and pilot the ship, Hyunwoo said. If we need to leave quickly, you're the only one who can get us out of here fast enough. 2 hours later, Hyunwoo, Sojin, Minho, and Thektar were floating in space outside the derelict ship. Their environmental suits made soft humming sounds as the life support systems worked to keep them alive. The ship was even more impressive up close. The hull was made of metal that seemed to change color as they moved around it. There's a breach in the side hull about 50 meters from here, Sojin said over the radio. It looks like something exploded from inside the ship. They flew toward the breach. The hole in the hull was perfectly round, as if it had been cut with a giant laser. But the edges were melted and twisted, which meant it had been caused by an explosion. Stay close together, Hyunwoo ordered as they flew into the ship. And keep your weapons ready. Inside the ship, their helmet lights revealed a corridor that was both familiar and strange. It looked like human construction, but the walls were covered with symbols that hurt to look at directly. The floor was metal, but it felt soft under their boots, like walking on living tissue. Captain, look at this, Sojin called from ahead. She was standing next to a wall panel that was glowing with soft blue light. This technology is at least 500 years ahead of anything humans have built, maybe more. Minho was scanning everything with his handheld computer. The metal composition is impossible. It's stronger than anything we know how to make, but it's also lighter than aluminum. And Captain, some of these walls are warm, like they're alive. They moved deeper into the ship. The corridors were filled with debris, but not the kind they expected. Instead of broken equipment and damaged walls, they found strange organic growths that looked like plants from an alien world. The growths glowed with the same blue light as the wall panels. This is definitely not a normal human ship, Thektar said. His forearms were holding different weapons as he watched for danger. My people's stories speak of ships that grow like living things. They are always dangerous. They reached what looked like the ship's main corridor. It was wide enough for 10 people to walk side by side. The walls were covered with screens that showed star charts and technical information. But the stars on the charts were not arranged like any known constellation. Captain, Minho said quietly, these star charts show star positions that won't happen for thousands of years. According to this, the star Rigel will go supernova in exactly 4,147 years, but our scientists say it won't happen for at least 10,000 years. Sojin was studying one of the technical displays. Captain, this is incredible. These technical manuals show how to build technology we can't even imagine. Faster than light engines that don't need fuel, weapons that can destroy entire planets, medical equipment that can bring people back from the dead. And here I thought we were just looking for scrap metal to sell, Hyunwoo said. That's when they saw her. The woman appeared at the end of the corridor like she had always been there. She was tall and thin, wearing a uniform that looked like it was made of light. Her face was Asian, and she looked to be about 30 years old. But her image flickered like a bad hologram, and they could see the wall behind her. You should not be here, the woman said. Her voice came from everywhere and nowhere at once. This ship sails between when and where? You do not belong in this time. Thektar raised all 4 of his weapons. Holographic recording, nothing more. But the woman turned to look directly at him. I am not a recording insectkin. I am Young Mi, communications officer of the UES Indomitable, and you are all in great danger. The ghostly woman named Young Mi stood perfectly still in the corridor, her flickering form casting no shadow on the walls. Hyunwoo felt his heart beating fast inside his environmental suit. In 15 years of salvage work, he had never seen anything like this. What kind of danger? Sojin asked. Her voice was steady, but Hyunwoo could hear the excitement underneath. She was more curious than afraid. Young Mi turned to face Sojin directly. The hunters are coming. They follow this ship across time and space, seeking what we carry. You have perhaps hours before they arrive. Hunters? Minho asked. What hunters? And how can you be talking to us if you're just a recording? I am no recording, young analyst. I am the consciousness of Communications Officer Young Mi, bound to this ship when we tried to escape the end of everything. The ghost's form became more solid as she spoke. We failed to save our time, but we succeeded in saving hope itself. Thektar kept his weapons pointed at the apparition. Consciousness cannot exist without physical form. This is impossible. Young Mai smiled, and for a moment she looked completely real. Insect kin, your people measure possibility by what they have seen. Humans measure possibility by what they refuse to accept. That is why we are here, and why you are in danger. What year are you from? Hyunwoo asked. By your calendar, the year 3847, but time has little meaning aboard the Indomitable now. We exist in all times and no time. So Jin pulled out her scanner and pointed it at young Mi. Captain, this is incredible. She's giving off energy readings, but not like any living thing I've ever seen. It's like she's made of pure thought. How did you get here? Minho asked. How did a ship from the future end up in our time? Young Mi began walking down the corridor, her feet making no sound on the metal floor. Follow me. There are others you must meet, others who can explain better than I can. They followed the ghost deeper into the ship. The corridors became stranger as they walked. Some sections looked like they had been built yesterday. Other sections were covered with what looked like battle damage from weapons that didn't exist yet. The organic growths on the walls pulsed with light as they passed. Captain, Thektar whispered over the radio. My people have stories about ships like this. They call them vessels of the lost. Ships where the dead refuse to die and the living refuse to live. We should leave now. Just a little further, young Mi called over her shoulder. The others are waiting in the central core. They reached a massive chamber at the heart of the ship. It was easily 100 meters across, with a ceiling that disappeared into darkness above them. In the center of the room stood a crystal formation that was taller than their ship. The crystal pulsed with the same blue light as everything else, but brighter and more intense. Around the crystal stood dozens of ghostly figures, men and women in uniforms from different time periods. Some wore clothing that looked like it came from Hyunwoo's era. Others wore uniforms that looked far more advanced. All of them had the same flickering, translucent appearance as young Mi. Welcome to the heart of the Indomitable, said a tall man with captain's insignia on his ghostly uniform. I am Tae-hyun, commanding officer of this vessel. Or I was, before. We became something else. Hyunwoo stepped forward. Captain to captain, I need to understand what's happening here. My crew is in danger, and I don't know why. Tae-hyun nodded with respect. Direct and honest. Good qualities for a captain. He gestured to the crystal. This is the temporal core. It was our attempt to escape the end of our timeline. When the Void Devourers came to consume our reality, we tried to jump backward through time to warn the past. Void Devourers? So Jin asked. A ghostly woman with engineer's markings stepped forward. I am Bo Young, Chief Engineer. The Void Devourers are entities that exist outside normal space and time. They consume entire realities, leaving nothing behind. In our timeline, they had already destroyed most of the galaxy before we learned how to fight them. Minho was scanning the crystal with his computer. Captain, the readings from that crystal are impossible. It's generating energy patterns that shouldn't exist. It's like it's pulling power from nothing. Not from nothing, Bo Young said. From human determination itself. The crystal contains the concentrated essence of human willpower from 1,000 different battles. Every time a human refused to give up, even when defeat was certain, that refusal became part of the crystal's power. Thektar lowered his weapons but kept them ready. You speak of concepts as if they were physical things. Willpower cannot be stored in a crystal. Can't it? Asked another ghost, a young woman with scientist's insignia. I am Su Jin, quantum physicist. Human consciousness affects reality in ways your species cannot understand. When a human truly believes something is possible, reality sometimes agrees with them. Hyunwoo felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold ship. Are you saying that human thoughts can change the laws of physics? Not change them, Tae-hyun explained. Ignore them. When humans are faced with absolute impossibility, they sometimes choose to proceed anyway. That choice creates small tears in reality. Usually these tears heal quickly, but sometimes, when enough humans make the same impossible choice, the tears become permanent. Young Mai pointed at the crystal. The temporal core was built around one of these tears. We fell through time not because of our technology, but because every human on this ship refused to accept that our reality was ending. Our collective refusal to surrender created a pathway through time itself. But the experiment failed, Bo Young continued. We arrived in the past, but as consciousness without physical form. We became bound to the ship, existing as memories of people who won't be born for centuries. So Jin was studying her scanner readings with growing excitement. Captain, the technology on this ship is incredible. If we could understand how it works, humans could become the most advanced species in the galaxy. That was our hope, Taehyun said sadly. But first we had to survive what we brought with us. The hunters, Young Mi said. They followed us through time. They are scouts for the Void Devourers, and they are coming here now. Minho looked at his scanner in alarm. Captain, I'm detecting massive spatial distortions approaching our position. Whatever is coming, it's big, and it's moving faster than anything should be able to move. Velnoth's voice crackled over the radio from the Harmony's edge. Captain, you need to get back here immediately. My sensors are showing something impossible. Approaching. It's like space itself is being twisted into shapes that shouldn't exist. Taehyun looked directly at Hyunwoo. Captain, your ship cannot fight what is coming, but perhaps together, the living and the dead, we can find a way to survive. The crystal at the center of the room pulsed brighter, and suddenly Hyunwoo could feel something new in his mind. Knowledge that wasn't his, memories of battles he had never fought, tactical information about enemies he had never seen. What's happening to me? He asked. The awakening, Sujin said. The first step in humanity's journey to become what we were in our timeline. But Captain, we must hurry. The hunters have found us. The ship shook violently, throwing Hyunwoo against the wall of the crystal chamber. Emergency lights flashed red throughout the Indomitable, and somewhere in the distance, metal screamed as it was torn apart. The ghostly crew members flickered, like candles in a strong wind, but they did not seem afraid. Captain! Velnoth's voice crackled with static over the radio. Something just appeared next to us. It's not like any ship I've ever seen. It's hurting my mind to look at it. Hyunwoo grabbed his radio. Velnoth, get the Harmony's edge away from here. Full power to the engines. I can't, Captain. The thing is doing something to space around us. My engines won't work properly. It's like we're stuck in thick liquid. Taehyun, the ghostly captain, moved closer to Hyunwoo. The hunter has arrived. Your friend speaks truly. It is not like other ships. It exists partially outside normal reality. That is why it causes pain to look upon. Through the walls of the ship, they could hear a sound that no sound should be able to make in the vacuum of space. It was like metal being twisted, mixed with the screaming of 1,000 voices. The sound went through their environmental suits and directly into their bones. What is that thing? Minho asked. His scanner was making angry beeping sounds and showing readings that made no sense. Sujin, the ghostly scientist, pointed toward the chamber's ceiling. A harvester, the scouts of the Void Devourers. They are machines built from the nightmares of dead civilizations. They exist in multiple dimensions at once, which is why your technology cannot properly detect them. So Jin was working frantically, with her scanner, trying to understand what they were facing. Captain, whatever that thing is, it's affecting the ship's power systems, but somehow the effect is making them stronger instead of weaker. The Indomitable feeds on impossibility, Bo Young explained. The more the harvester tries to destroy reality around us, the more powerful our ship becomes. The ship shook again, harder this time. Pieces of the ceiling fell down around them, but the pieces passed through the ghostly crew members without touching them. Vector was studying his weapon readouts with confusion. My weapons show targets all around us, but they also show no targets at all. How do we fight something that exists and doesn't exist at the same time? You don't fight it, Young Mi said. We fight it. The dead can touch what the living cannot. Suddenly, Hyunwoo's mind filled with information he had never learned. Battle tactics for fighting enemies that existed outside normal space. Weapon configurations that could harm beings made of twisted reality. Command protocols for coordinating attacks across multiple dimensions of existence. What's happening? To me? He asked, holding his head as the new knowledge burned into his brain. The awakening continues, Tae-hyun said. You are receiving the combat knowledge of every human who ever refused to accept defeat, even against impossible odds. Minho dropped his scanner and stared at his hands. Captain, I know how to repair systems that won't be invented for centuries. I can see the ship's blueprints in my mind, but they're blueprints for technologies that don't exist. So Jin was no longer looking at her instruments. Instead, she was looking at the walls of the ship as if she could see through them. I can feel the engine systems. Not just this ship's engines, but engines from ships that haven't been built yet. I know how to make them work. The Harmony's edge suddenly appeared on the chamber's main screen. But it wasn't alone. Next to it was something that hurt to look at directly. The harvester was like a ship, but also like a living thing, but also like a geometric pattern that folded in on itself. It was black and silver and colors that had no names. It was small and huge at the same time. By the ancient void, Thektar whispered. What demon spawned that abomination? The void devourers create their servants from the death screams of entire civilizations, Sujin explained. Each harvester contains the compressed agony of billions of beings. They use that agony as both weapon and fuel. Velnoth's voice came over the radio, distorted and filled with panic. Captain, the thing is doing something to my mind. I can hear voices speaking in languages that were never meant to be spoken. You have to help me. Hyunwoo felt anger building in his chest. His crew was in danger, and there was nothing he could do about it from inside the derelict ship. But then the new knowledge in his mind showed him something different. I can get to him, he said, surprising himself with his certainty. Captain, that's impossible, Minho said. We're inside the Indomitable. Our ship is hundreds of meters away, and there's a reality-bending monster between us. Distance is an illusion when fighting the harvesters, said a new voice. They turned to see another ghost, this one wearing the uniform of an admiral. I am Jae-won. I commanded the final defense of Earth in our timeline. Captain Hyunwoo, your species has a gift that no other species possesses. When faced with absolute impossibility, humans sometimes simply choose to ignore it. The admiral gestured toward the crystal. Touch the temporal core. Let it show you what you really are. Hyunwoo walked toward the pulsing crystal. As he got closer, he could feel power radiating from it like heat from a fire. When his gloved hand touched the surface, his mind exploded with visions. He saw humans fighting against impossible odds across 1,000 different worlds. He saw human soldiers charging at enemies that could destroy planets with a thought. He saw human scientists solving problems by refusing to believe the problems were unsolvable. He saw human explorers walking into black holes because someone had told them it was impossible to survive. And in every vision, the humans won. Not because they were stronger or smarter or better equipped. They won because they simply refused to accept that losing was possible. Now you understand, Admiral, Jae-won said. Human determination is not just an emotion. It is a fundamental force of reality. When enough humans truly believe something can be done, reality reshapes itself to make it possible. The knowledge flowing through Hyunwoo showed him exactly what he needed to do. So, Jin, can you transfer power from the Indomitable's engines to our ship's weapons? I can do better than that, Sojin said with a smile that was both terrifying and wonderful. I can transfer knowledge directly to Velnoth's mind. He'll know how to fly like a human, not like his people. Do it, Hyunwoo ordered. The crystal pulsed brighter, and through their radio connection, they heard Velnoth scream. But it was not a scream of pain. It was a scream of joy and terror and absolute determination. Captain, Velnoth's voice came over the radio, now steady and filled with confidence. I understand now. We're going to kill this thing. The Harmony's edge began moving in ways that should have been impossible for its design. It danced around the harvester like a fighter instead of a salvage vessel, and for the first time since it had arrived, the reality-bending monster seemed surprised. The hunt had begun, but now the humans were the hunters. The battle raged in space around the Indomitable as more harvesters appeared from the twisted darkness between realities. Hyunwoo watched through the ship's screens as Velnoth piloted the Harmony's edge with impossible skill, dodging attacks. That bent space itself. The salvage ship moved like it was dancing, its weapons firing beams of energy that somehow hurt creatures made of living nightmare. "How many more are coming?" Hyun-woo asked Admiral Jae-won. The ghostly admiral studied the tactical displays that appeared in the air around them. 7 more harvesters are approaching. They have detected what we carry, and they will not stop until they claim it or destroy it. "What exactly do we carry?" So Jin asked. She was working at control panels that flickered between existing and not existing, her hands moving with knowledge she had never learned. "What makes this ship so important that monsters from outside reality want it?" Young Mai appeared beside them, her ghostly form more solid than before. "We carry the seed of humanity's future. Every human who encounters this ship receives a fragment of what your species will become. Knowledge, determination, and the refusal to accept defeat." Minho was coordinating with systems throughout the ship, his mind connected to computers that processed information faster than light. "Captain, I'm receiving reports from human settlements across the sector. They're all experiencing the same thing we are, dreams of technologies they've never seen, sudden understanding of sciences they've never studied. It's happening everywhere." "The awakening spreads," Taehyun said with satisfaction. "Every human consciousness within 1,000 light years is receiving the gift we carried back through time." Through the ship's communications, they could hear voices from human colonies across space. Farmers who suddenly understood advanced engineering. Children who began drawing blueprints for ships that wouldn't be invented for centuries. Scientists who solved problems by applying theories that didn't exist yet. But the harvesters had noticed, too. 3 more of the reality-bending creatures appeared around human settlements, drawn by the expanding wave of impossible knowledge. "They're hunting other humans now," Hyun-woo realized. "This isn't just about the ship anymore." "No," Admiral Jae-won said grimly. "This is about preventing humanity from becoming what it was meant to be. The Void Devourers remember what happened in our timeline. They know that humans are the only species that can truly fight them." The Indomitable shuddered as one of the harvesters attacked it directly. But instead of damaging the ship, the attack made it stronger. The organic growths on the walls pulsed brighter, and the ghostly crew members became more solid. "The ship feeds on their attacks," Bo Young explained. "Every attempt to destroy human determination only makes it stronger. That is the curse and the blessing of your species." Hyun-woo made a decision that surprised even himself. "We need to activate the ship's final protocol." The ghost crew members all turned to stare at him. "Captain," Taehyun said carefully, "you cannot know about the final protocol. That knowledge was locked away even from us." "I know because I need to know," Hyun-woo said simply. "The crystal showed me everything. If we activate the protocol, the ship will phase completely out of normal time and space. But before it goes, it will download everything it carries into every human mind in the galaxy. That would awaken all of humanity at once," Soo-jin said with wonder and terror. "Your species would advance 1,000 years in a single moment." "But the ship would be lost forever," Young-mi added, "and we would finally be able to rest." So-jin looked up from her impossible controls. "Captain, I can do it. I can see the activation sequence in my mind. But are you sure? Once we start the protocol, there's no stopping it." Hyun-woo thought about Velnoth fighting impossible odds outside. He thought about human families across the galaxy being hunted by nightmares from beyond reality. He thought about the future the ghost crew had tried to save. "Do it," he ordered. So-jin's hands moved over controls that existed in 7 dimensions at once. The crystal at the center of the chamber began to pulse faster, its light growing brighter with each beat. "All harvesters are converging on our position," Minho reported. "They know what we're doing." "Let them come," Thektar said. His weapons were now firing energy that could hurt beings made of twisted space-time. "I have learned to fight like a human. I will not surrender." The final protocol activated with a sound like reality itself breaking apart. The Indomitable began to fade from normal space, but its light grew brighter and brighter. Across the galaxy, humans stopped what they were doing and looked up at the stars with sudden understanding. On Earth, children began drawing pictures of the Void Devourers and how to fight them. On Mars, engineers started building weapons that could fire across dimensions. On the outer colonies, farmers began growing crops that could survive in the vacuum of space, because they suddenly knew that humanity would need to grow food in impossible places. Every human consciousness received the same gift, the knowledge that their species was meant to be the guardians of reality itself. "It's working," Youngmi said, her voice filled with joy. "I can feel them awakening across the stars. Your species is becoming what it was always meant to be." The harvesters screamed in frequencies that existed outside normal sound as they realized what was happening. They launched desperate attacks at the fading ship, but their attacks only made the awakening stronger. Velnoth's voice came over the radio one last time. "Captain, I can see what you've done. The knowledge is spreading to other species too. We're all becoming something new." "How is that possible?" Hyunwoo asked. "Because humans don't just refuse to surrender for themselves," Admiral Jae-won said, with pride. "They refuse to let anyone else surrender either. Your determination is contagious." The Indomitable was almost completely gone from normal reality now. The Ghost crew members were beginning to fade as well, their long duty finally ending. "Thank you," Taehyun said to Hyunwoo. "You have given us what we could not give ourselves, peace. And you have given us what we needed," Hyunwoo replied. "Hope." The ship disappeared completely, taking the harvesters with it into whatever realm existed beyond time and space. But its legacy remained. Across the galaxy, humanity had awakened to its true nature. 6 months later, the first human-designed starships began patrolling the edges of reality, hunting for signs of the Void Devourers. The ships were impossible by any previous understanding of physics, but they worked because their human crews simply refused to accept that they couldn't work. Hyunwoo stood on the bridge of one such ship, the new Indomitable, watching his mixed crew of humans and aliens work together with skills they had gained in a single moment of awakening. Minho was now designing technologies that wouldn't be invented for centuries, but he built them anyway. So-jin was engineering solutions to problems that didn't exist yet because she knew they would exist someday. Velnoth flew their ship through dimensions that his people had never discovered because he had learned to think like a human. And somewhere in the space between realities, Hyunwoo knew the ghost ship was still sailing, carrying its message to other times and other species. That some things are too important to accept defeat, even when defeat seems certain. The ghost ship was never empty because it carried the one thing that could never be destroyed, the human spirit that turns impossible into inevitable.